everyone, my name is Keely and I'm the owner and creator here at Soy and Shea, and thank you so much for joining me. Today I'm going to take you along as I make one of my orders up for some Refresh Shower Fizzers. Now my Refresh Shower Fizzers I pack full of menthol crystal and peppermint and eucalyptus essential oils, and they are just heaven in those cold winter months when you're just looking for that little bit of a pick-me-up when you get into the shower. Let's go and see how I make them. So I have my gloves on, I've got my apron on, I've got my hairnet on, and everything has been washed down with a 10% bleach solution. And the first thing I'm going to do is weigh out some of my dry ingredients. So I've got my mixing bowl on here, and the first thing I'm going to do is weigh out some bicarbonate of soda, and I like to sieve mine into the bowl. Because I want a nice, long-lasting, very hard shower fizzer, I am going to add in some cornstarch as well. Now, when I usually make bath bombs, I don't put this into my bath bombs because I know a few people are concerned about it. But because these are not designed, especially this Refresh one is not designed to go in the bathtub, I do like to use plenty of this to make sure that it stays nice and hard for as long as possible. Right, so all of our dry ingredients except for our citric acid is measured out into the bowl. And what I'm now going to do is measure out my wet ingredients. All right, so into my jug here, I'm going to use some safflower oil. I really like it because it's a nice light oil, and because the idea of a shower steamer is that it goes on the base of the floor and it melts away and releases the fragrance which travels up with the steam into the main area of the shower, I feel that there's no real point into putting all fancy oils and butters and everything else into the shower fizzer, so I keep it nice and plain and simple. What I am going to do, however, with this oil is just go and gently heat it up a little bit, and then I'm going to put some menthol crystals in here. Okay, so my oil is now warm enough that I can melt my menthol crystals down. Now, menthol crystals do work best if you do melt them down. If you were just to throw the crystals themselves straight into the mix, because they're not dissolvable in water, they're not going to do their thing in the shower. But if you blend them into or melt them down into some oil, or even essential oils will melt them down as well, it will allow them to actually evaporate and do their wonderful magic that they do. Now, I choose to use oil in my shower fizzers. You could use water instead and then melt your crystals in the essential oil. But for me, where I am, I find that whenever I use water in my shower fizzers, they just go soft and horrible. Whereas if I use the oil, they stay nice and hard for me for quite some time, and will stay hard for the customers once they have them in their bathroom. So I'm going to weigh out the menthol crystals that I need, and then I'm going to stir this until it melts down. So while that is still melting down, this is quite a low temperature at the moment. It's about 37, 38 degrees. What I'm going to do is add in my essential oil blend. And here I have some peppermint oil. So I'm going to add a bit of that in. And I'm also very careful to put notes on these that young children, especially children under the age of 10, that these are not suitable for because of these essential oils. If I can get the top of this one, there it goes. This is a eucalyptus oil, but this one here is a blue gum eucalyptus, and I love the smell of blue gum eucalyptus. It's so beautiful and fresh. And then the last one I am also going to put in is some more eucalyptus oil, but this is actually a peppermint eucalyptus. There are so many different eucalyptus plants out there, and they all have their own unique smells, and I really like I really like this eucalyptus peppermint just for how fresh it actually really is, and gives that peppermint and that menthol crystal just that extra little boost. Okay, so the crystals are now all nicely melted down, and before I start combining and mixing all this together, I'm going to come back to this jug here. Because I am using oil and I obviously don't want people to slip over in the shower, I am going to add in some polysorbate 80, so that as the shower water touches the shower fizzer and starts to dissolve them, the oil will help that oil to actually combine with the water and disappear, or go down the drain system, and won't leave a slippy residue. So in this container here, I have my citric acid, which I have already measured out, and then I have ground it down using my NutriBullet. I'll just get the lid off that so it is all right to go in just a moment. Okay, so we are now ready to start actually combining all of our ingredients, and I'm going to use my Sunbeam Planetary Mixer to do this. Now, did you know if you actually own one of these that you can buy replacement and spare parts for it? So you can buy extra bowls, different paddles and all that sort of thing as well. But generally when you buy this one, you get this plastic paddle, and I have been through that many of these paddles, it's not funny. They just keep breaking in here, especially when you're mixing butters and things like that. I then discovered when I went to order some last time that you can actually buy these metal ones. I'm not sure what it's made of, so I wouldn't use soap with it, but it's a nice sturdy heavy metal, and since investing in a couple of these, they have really changed how I use my actual machine. I can put butters and all sorts through it and know that I'm not going to crack my paddle. You can also buy replacement bowls and all sorts. If you're here in Australia, there is a place down in Victoria called Ellis Electrical, and I've actually used them to buy replacement parts for all sorts of kitchen appliances. I actually bought a new paddle for my ActiFry. I've bought replacement sort of pieces for my hand mixers. Really good place. I'll leave a link to them down below. What I'm going to do is start on low. I am going to mix in this polysorbate and my oils, and once I feel that they are nicely combined, I'm going to add in my citric acid. I always add my citric acid last, just to stop any reactions that may happen. That is all mixed in, I'm just going to clear up a little bit of this mess, and then I'm going to start pressing them. Now we're all set up to do the pressing of our fizzers here. Now you really don't need any fancy equipment to press them. You just need some good old-fashioned brute strength. I am, however, using my Bath Bomb Express hand press because I do have issues with getting enough pressure to hand pack these, and I am hoping very soon to upgrade to the pneumatic because I am starting to now struggle to do this as the years have gone by. But what I've got over on my scale is my mix in the container, and I set this to 0, and then I scoop out the amount that I want, just keeping in mind that this is going to go into the negatives. So if you're after 50 grams, it will say -50 or -70 or something like that. Once you get to the weight that you want as that minus figure, you know you've taken enough out of the bowl, and it just saves having to weigh it into the actual molds themselves. So I've got it in here. I'm using one of the puck mold, I think it is. And what I'm going to do is just layer all that up together and push down. Now I am using mine probably a little bit different to how it's set up. You are meant to be able to screw the top onto here and push it down, but I find I get much more pressure by actually building these layers up this way. So I push that down nice and strongly there. I've got this handy little tool that comes with this press, so just take all that apart, push from the bottom. I give it a little bit of a twist over my bowl just to knock off any of this extra bit, flip it up, and that is one of the shower fizzers. So I'll move on to the next one. So just pop my puck back down into the bottom. Now you could actually, you know, tear this out every time, but I just work in multiples. So if you were doing 50, you'd go 100 and then 150 each time, or you'd go 70, 140, 210. So I'm just going to scoop out what I need again. And that's right. So I'm going to put my top layer on, put that little piece, and then I push down. Now, when I first started making shower fizzers, these presses really hadn't actually been thought about. So there were a couple of different ways in which you could make them. When I first started, you know, when you can get clamshell melts or clamshell molds for melts, and you can also get the ones which are a circle for soaps. I was actually using the circle one, and I would hand pack and push all of this mix into that little plastic mold, and then once they were set up and hard, I'd flip them all out. Other things you could do is use a mooncake press. They're really good for actually pressing as well. I found that when I used the mooncake press, I pushed too hard one day and it split, and I almost ended up with quite a nasty injury, so I stopped using that one. But any sort of solid plastic mold you could use to pack your shower fizzers into. So there's another one. Okay, so I know that quite a few people will actually leave down in the thing about leaving my recipe or ratios and that sort of thing. Now for this, I'm actually not going to leave the recipe, and this is why. I have tried that many bath bomb recipes from off the internet, whether they be paid ones or whether they be free ones, and I have never ever had success with it. And that is because most of these recipes are designed for that person's particular climate that they are in. So these shower fizzers, which basically work off the same principles as making a bath bomb in terms of your bicarb and your citric acid ratios, is going to be like making a bath bomb. This works for me, it works for me in my climate, but it may not work for somebody else. So I don't want people to actually get disappointed by a recipe that may not work for them. But what I can tell you is work off that sort of basic principle of a bath bomb, so your same ratios for bicarb and citric acid, and then work out how much and what style of liquid material you need to make them work for you and in your climatic conditions. So whether you can get away with just using water, or whether you need to use oil to stop them from going soft. Now there were a couple of tips I did give you in that video, especially with regards to using something like menthol crystals, and if you do use your oil, using some polysorbate in them as well. So what I'm going to do is finish pressing these, and then I'm going to actually leave these ones sit here for about 2 days to really dry out, and then I am going to come back and show you how I package them. Okay, so I've got you in a different part of the workshop today. This is my packing station and is where I keep my National Shrink Wrap machine. These have been sitting here for about 48 hours and they are now ready to package up. So I'm going to show you how I do mine. Now normally when I package most of my items on my roll over here, which you can just see off camera, I would normally have a biodegradable film. However, the biodegradable film that I have actually is a perforated one. So if I were to put these in there, they probably wouldn't stay nice and hard once they get into the bathroom where you get lots of moisture. So until I can actually afford to get the non-perforated biodegradable, I'm just using up the shrink wrap film that I had before getting that biodegradable one in. So all I'm going to do is place my little shower fizzers in here. And the great thing about using the National Shrink Wrap machine is that it is so quick and easy to do this sort of thing. If you don't have a National Shrink Wrap machine, you can use any sort of polyethylene bags. You can use your shrink wrap bags as well, and then use an impulse sealer. If you haven't yet even upgraded to a impulse sealer, when I first started and I wasn't sure whether or not I was going to do a lot of heat sealing of things, I actually invested in a hair straightener. And for the first year of making things, I actually used a hair straightener to seal up shrink wrap bags, and it works just as well. You just don't get that really fine cutting ability that you get when you use something like an impulse sealer or the National Shrink Wrap. So all I'm doing as I move along is I'm pushing my stock up to the edge of my shrink wrap here, and then I push down on the bar, and then I can gently pull away, and that just separates them all off. Now what I'm going to do is seal all of them going this way, so just making sure that they're pushed up against the edge but not too tight. I push down and then I can pull all of my little fizzers off. I just knock them along with my wand here and then just gently pull them off, and then we've got this last row to do here. And again, I'm not making them too tight because I don't want to bust through the seams, but just tight enough that there's not too much air. Now normally what you do once you got to this stage with any of your sort of soaps and things that you were using in shrink wrap, you would actually shrink these closed, but I don't actually shrink wrap these. I just think that it's much easier just to tear them open. Shrink wrapping them means a lot more handling, and because of the menthol crystals, like, it's not harmful to handle, but if you then put your fingers near your mouth or anything like that, or near your eyes, it really doesn't taste nice and does make your eyes a little bit watery. So I tend to just leave them so that they're nice and easy to rip open and pop in the bottom of the shower. So now I've got it to this stage, I'll go and get the boxes. So to package up my shower fizzers, normally on the shelf, this is how they come in these little cardboard boxes, and they open them up to find the shower fizzer, and the label is wrapped all the way around the outside with instructions on how to use and the ingredients and exactly what it is. These boxes here I get from off of eBay, and they come in a black, white or a craft. I do not suggest the black boxes though. The last couple I have had a bit of a funny smell to the cardboard. These ones are okay, but some of the other cardboard ones I've had have had a funny smell to them, and it's just something to do with processing black cardboard. So if you can, try and go for the white or the craft ones. Now, because this order is for a family friend, I'm going to package these up a little bit differently. I have these Chinese noodle box containers, and what I'm going to do is just throw a label onto the front, and this is just what is inside the box. So we've got shower fizzers, we've got 6 of them, and what the weight of each of them are. On the back, even though she's ordered plenty of these before, I am going to put down how to use them, what ingredients are in there, and just all the warnings that go with it as well, which is kind of important. Even if someone does use your products a lot, always put those things with them, because if they do decide to gift them to somebody, that person that's receiving them as a gift will also need to know the safety precautions when using a product. So in particular, these ones shouldn't be used, definitely shouldn't be used in the bathtub, and also shouldn't be used with young children. So we're going to get that all boxed up, and that is how I then offer the shower fizzers to her. So I hope you have enjoyed watching how I make my Refresh Shower Fizzers. If you did, why not leave me a thumbs up and any comments down below. If you do have any questions, I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. And until the next video, I hope you have a great week, and I will see you then. Bye.